Hey guys, today I am going to break down how to make the best DIY mask and DIY filters for you and your family from household items. Let's get started. Here's a look at all of the items you will need for your mask. All items will be listed in full detail on my blog, MariaAntoinette.com. The best materials to use are 100% cotton. Then you can go into cotton blends, t-shirts, pillowcases, quilting swatches. Anything that you have in your home can be used. To get the proper fit, measure from the bridge of your nose to a little under your chin. Then measure from ear to ear, making sure that you go over your nose. Alright, you're going to take the measurements that you get and you're going to divide them in half and kind of hold those numbers in your mind. You're going to take a piece of paper and fold it in half. I'm taking my ruler and I'm measuring over 2.5 because my son measured nose to chin 5 inches, split that in half, 2.5, right? His ear over nose to ear was 8 inches, and that is in half 4 inches. So that's where I come up with my rectangle. Now I'm drawing in my 2 centimeter marker at the top of the pattern and a 3 centimeter marker at the bottom. Those are my curve connecting lines. This is how you're going to get your mask. I'm then going to take my 2 centimeter marker and then go up to the top of the square for the pattern. So that's it. That's how you make your mask. That's how you develop your shape. If you want it to be a little bit more narrow, if you want to customize it, this is where you can do that. We just cut out our pattern for our outer shell and our lining. Now it's time to make the pattern for our pocket. You could simply just trace that pattern again, and then you're going to measure up from the bottom 1.5 centimeters to make it shorter so it can be a pocket inside of the mask. But I'm showing you all over again how I was able to make the pattern from scratch. I'm literally repeating the same steps that I did for the last pattern we just cut out. But this time I'm adding a 1.5 centimeter difference at the bottom that I'm going to cut away to make it a pocket. And here are your 2 pattern pieces. Now I'm going to show you the measurements that I used for my husband, as well as the measurements that I used for myself. And again, I'm going to show you the measurements that I used for my son. But don't worry about trying to screen capture those here. I have everything over on my blog, MariaAntoinette.com. From what I gathered by making these for a couple of people, these measurements seem to be pretty universal. Alright, let's get into making my son's mask. I am going to be using one of his favorite t-shirts. It's rather old. He has a few of them, so this is the perfect t-shirt to use. This is going to be for his outer shell. I'm basically going to cut the t-shirt open and I'm going to remove the front panel so that I can use that as my design fabric. With the front cut out, I'm going to simply fold that in half to the best of my ability. It doesn't have to be perfect here, guys. We're just doing this for protection. I'm going to take that outer shell and lining pattern and I'm going to sketch out the pattern onto the fabric. And it's totally fine if you are messy with this because it will be sewn and you won't see it. Now I'm going to take the same outer shell and lining pattern and do my lining. I'm doing it in an orange cotton. Put those aside. Now I'm taking a piece of the back of the shirt which has no design on it, and that's going to be the pocket. You'll notice I always fold the fabric so that I get the 2 pieces that I need to make the full mask. And here are all the pieces that you should have when you get done. Now I'm going to open up that outer shell and I'm going to put the 2 design fabrics facing each other. So that means that the outer designer fabric is going to be on the inside of this, and then I'm going to pin it together. And I'm going to repeat this process with all 3 pieces. With everything pinned into place, I'm now going to put a 1/4 seam onto the outer part of my mask as well as the lining and the pocket. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove all of the extra thread that is left on each one of those sections, and I'm going to put in small slits. This is going to allow me to be able to open the mask and give a beautiful curve so it won't be bulky. This is optional. I find it to be really pretty when I press it out. If you do not have the time, it is not something you have to do once you do those small slits. Now I am taking the pocket piece of the pattern and I am folding over 1/4 and then 1/4 again, and then I'm going to go and sew each one of those sides down. This is how we're going to make it look very clean and very professional, so when you're pulling your filters in and out of that pocket, it doesn't get raveled and look ratty. Once we get both sides sewn down, I'm going to simply clip off all excess thread and you're going to have something that looks like this. Now it's time to put our mask together. This is the fun part. This is where you see it come to life. We took the lining, the orange part is the lining. We're going to put that face down with the seam facing the desk. Now we're going to put the pocket face down with the seam laying on top of the orange lining. This is very important. Whatever you put that pocket on is going to be your inside lining. I learned that the hard way. I'm going to simply match up the seams and then I'm going to pin it into place. When you start making these more frequently, you can do all three pieces at the same time. It does save time, but for those who are beginners, you want to do it step by step to assure that you have everything in place. Now I'm taking my outer shell and I'm going to turn it inside out. We want the beauty fabric or the designer fabric to be inside of this at this point. I'm now going to do a 1/4 seam on just the outsides of the mask. Quick tip, when sewing these, always do a back stitch at the end of each one of your full rows. This will ensure that nothing unravels and it just looks so much more professional. Now we're going to do the small slits again to assure that it curves and it's comfortable and it has flexibility and it lays properly. And we're going to turn the mask inside out. We're going to go ahead and get all of our seams stretched out, everything in place. If you want to run an iron over this, you totally can. But that is completely optional and it's not something that's mandatory for it to look like a mask. As you can see, it looks great. Alright, so I'm going to pause right here with the Minecraft mask and we're going to move over to adding wire into your mask. That was for my son. He's smaller. We're not sick at this time, so I'm not going to make the wire in the mask because I don't want it to be so uncomfortable for him. So I'm going to take a 4 to 5 inch piece of 14 gauge wire and I'm going to follow it along the seam of the mask. With my fingers, I'm pushing it right up to the top of that seam, really making sure that it's in between all that extra fabric so that it's comfortable on your nose. I'm placing pins to hold it into place so when I come back, I can sew that right into my next seam. Now you're seeing me fold the fabric in about 1/2 inch and I'm going to place my elastic. This is for over the ear. If you want your mask to go over the ear, this is how you're going to do it. You're going to put one side of the elastic in, you're going to secure it with a straight pin, and then you're going to put the other side in. When pinning your second side, always check to make sure that your elastic is laying as straight as possible, that it doesn't have any twist in it. With our wire in place and our ear elastics in place, we would just simply do a 1/4 hem all the way around it. Now back to the Minecraft mask. This one is going to be around the head. So I'm taking a piece of elastic that I measured on my son's head and I'm going to push the elastic in. Make sure you guys give enough elastic inside the mask so that when you start to pull on it after you sew it, it doesn't unravel and then come unattached. So with that first side secured, I'm going to take it over to the next side, fold the mask in about 1/2 inch, and then I am going to insert the elastic deep enough so that I can feel it and know that when I go to sew that 1/4 hem on there, that I'll be sewing over that elastic a few times. You'll notice that I use the same technique. Always make sure that your elastic is straight. You don't want it to be twisted when you take it over to the other side of the entry of the mask. Alright, I know everybody's making masks right now and you might not be able to find elastic. I want you to know that you can use a piece of t-shirt, cut a thin strip of t-shirt with no seams or any stitching in it, and you'll be able to sew it in just like these elastic strips and you can tie it on your head. With the elastics in place and all my pins in place, I'm going to do a 1/4 seam all the way around the mask. When I am doing the elastic part, I do a lot of backwards and forwards, and sometimes I'll even come in with a zigzag stitch to assure that it does not unravel and pull out, because you're pulling it over your head and you're pulling it extra hard and you just want it to stay secure. Finding the right size mask for a small child is so hard, and basically you just solved your own problem by making it yourself. Now let's get into our filter. Alright, so I'm using a 3M Filtrate Healthy Living Furnace filter. Sounds crazy, right? Well, let's see what it says. With the 2800 MPR, it is the best Filtrate filter you can get. It scored a 10 on dust and lint. It scored 10 on pollen, pet dandruff. It scored a 10 on bacteria and viruses. And it got like around a 8 or 9 on small particles. It covers lint, household dust, dust mites, mold spores, pollen, pet dandruff, smoke, smog, cough, sneeze, bacteria, viruses, candle soot, PM 2.5, exhaust particles, and ultrafine particles. So how did I land with a furnace filter? Well, if you look at the materials used for an N95 mask, it's the same materials that are used in this filter. Now remember, this is not scientifically proven, but it is the same materials. Now my first step is going to be deconstructing my filter so that I can get the polypropylene filter material out. And look how much of this material you guys are going to get. The next step is going to be developing the pattern so that it can fit as snug inside of the mask as possible. Using the same two patterns that we previously made, I'm going to overlap them so I can get an idea of the thickness and the width that needs to go into the pocket. Obviously that was too thick, so I'm going to eyeball the rest of it. I'm simply going to cut this out and then I'm going to test it against the back side of the pocket. I can see here that it just is too narrow, so I'm going to fold it over and make sure that I'm in the center of the mask when I do the fold. I'm going to take a piece of construction paper on the fold and I'm going to do that half of the pattern. I'm going to cut that out, and when I unfold it, it should be the exact size I need it to be. Now I'm going to take it over to a piece of the filter. Make sure that you do not mark on the filter or pin on the filter. It kind of defeats the purpose of having this tight knit web. So you want to make sure that you're just cutting around the outer edge. I'm going to fold it. I'm going to put it into the mask, making sure that it hits all the way up to those curves, and we are done. I know it was a ton of information in this video. Make sure you guys head over to the MariaAntoinette.com, where I will have all of my sources and all of the details and everything else written out for you. Make sure to comment down below if you see yourself making these masks for your family. And thank you guys for all the support. See you in the next video. Bye.